Alaska has an enticing offer for one town in British Columbia. COVID-19 vaccines. Governor Mike Dunleavy offered to share doses, hoping to reopen part of the border between the state and the province. Governor Dunleavy is with us from Juneau, Alaska. Hi, Governor. Good to meet you, and thank you for making time for our program.
You bet, Vashi. Thank you.
I know that you're hoping, I've read that you're hoping to reopen the border between Stewart, British Columbia, and Hyder in Alaska by offering residents in British Columbia vaccines. Can you tell me a bit, A, about how that might work, and B, how soon it can happen?
Well, yeah, thank you. So, Alaska's done a fairly good job in managing this virus, and we were a leader in getting the vaccination out to our people. And right now we have about 65% of our people 65 and older are vaccinated. 40 plus percent of our folks 18 and over vaccinated. So we're doing a pretty good job, and we're fortunate that we have excess vaccinations. And so we went to visit the small town of Hyder, which is really it's a sister city to Stewart on the Glacier Highway in British Columbia. And the only way you can get to Hyder, which is an Alaskan town, very small town, about 65 people, just a stone's throw away from Stewart. You can literally see Stewart; it's right there. Is you have to fly in. And with the restrictions that Canada now has on the provinces, and including British Columbia, the folks in Hyder can't get across the border very easily to travel and get needed supplies. And so we went out there to make sure that those folks were vaccinated. But when we were there, we had invited folks from Stewart to come over to be vaccinated. And a number of them did come over to be vaccinated. And so we're willing to help our neighbors, our great neighbors to the east, the Canadians and the folks in Stewart, but we're also willing to help folks if they need to in the Yukon as well, because we have a transit point at Tok between the Yukon and Alaska, Haines, as well as Skagway. And so we've enjoyed decades and decades, obviously, of great relationships with our neighbors to the east, the Canadians. We want to continue that. We want to be able to help potentially form a bubble of vaccinated folks so that there might be a little bit more going back and forth across the border, because a lot of these folks, for example, in Hyder, they have relations with people in Stewart. And it's really, what I say it is, it's really one community, Hyder and Stewart, separated by two countries. And if we can help alleviate the isolation of Hyder, as well as the ability for Stewart folks to cross into Hyder to go work in their mines, et cetera, we're willing to do that. Is
there a limit to how many vaccines you can offer?
We don't know, but right now we do have a lot of vaccines. And again, we look at a place like Hyder and Stewart as one community. And even though half the community or a quarter of the community is Alaskan, the folks have always mixed, gotten along well together. The kids in Hyder go to school in Stewart. And so we feel we have enough vaccines to be able to vaccinate the folks in Stewart that have not yet been vaccinated, if they so choose. And we believe that we're going to have enough vaccine for folks that come over from the Yukon. We do have a large supply of vaccine. At this point, we'll vaccinate anyone that comes into the state of Alaska.
And have you had those conversations? I know you say the offer's on the table with Yukon. Like, is that something that's underway?
Our health folks in our health department, as well as their compadres across the border in the Yukon, they're having discussions. And we're hoping to announce something next week if the discussions continue to move in the right direction. So I think it's a real possibility.
So this speaks to an issue we've covered often on the show, and that is the greater discussion around the border between the U.S. and Canada. The kind of, I guess, epidemiology, I should say, of the two countries has really shifted over the last number of months as we see vaccination efforts in the U.S. accelerate at a pace that's faster than the one we're seeing here in Canada. We have spoken to a number of congressmen along the border who are eager to see some sort of plan in place for a wider reopening. That would be predicated on a kind of bigger sharing of vaccines coming from, for example, the White House. Have you heard anything to that effect? Do you think that's a good idea? The idea of the U.S. sharing some of its excess supply with Canada?
Well, sure I do. Because what's happening in the U.S. is it's flattening out in terms of the number of folks that want to be vaccinated. We're sure that a number of those folks in that category that right now are not vaccinated will want to get vaccinated over time. But nonetheless, if we have excess vaccine, we certainly want to help our neighbors and our friends. And I know that, for example, in the country of India, that's seeing a surge, that the United States and other countries have said that they're going to lend help to India. And so, again, Alaska's neighbor, our only land neighbor is Canada. and we've enjoyed terrific relationships with our Canadian friends for a very long time. And we want to continue to do that. We want to help them. The folks in Stewart help the folks in Hyder by bringing them, for example, firewood and sometimes food when it's difficult to get across the border. We just want to continue this relationship. And if we have the vaccines, which we do, we want to help folks, and we want to, if we can, form a little bit of a bubble of vaccine folks on both sides of the border so that there could be some potential cross-border activity.
Yeah, when you talk about that bubble, tell me a bit more about how you envision that working and what level of vaccination on either side could produce that kind of bubble.
Well, the science talks about 60 or 70%, and certainly Alaska is heading in that direction. What we would do, for example, in Hyder, which has about 65 people, all of the folks there that want to be vaccinated have been or will be vaccinated here shortly. We want to extend that as well to Stewart, as we mentioned. And if we can get as many of those folks to be vaccinated, we're hoping that at some point in the very near future, that the epidemiologists in Canada would say, we're at a rate where the vaccines have been distributed in those two communities. And so therefore, we believe that we can come up with an international bubble that would serve both communities. As I mentioned, folks in Stewart crossed over into Hyder to get to a couple of active mines where they work. Mm-hmm. The folks in Hyder need to go to Stewart for food, fuel, and other necessities. And so I think we have the tool. It is the vaccine, and we have the ability, we have the willingness to share that with the folks in Stewart. And so we're in contact with Canadian officials, and we should know something here shortly.
I was going to say, if in fact all goes according to plan, how soon do you think that bubble could be in place? Are you thinking like in the next month, the next few months, by summer?
We can have folks out there tomorrow vaccinating folks from Stewart. So Stewart's about 400 people. We would anticipate if folks really want to get the vaccinations, it could be done in a weekend or within 3 days.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Governor. I appreciate you lending some of your time tonight.
You bet. Thank you, and have a great day.
You too. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.